Hey, welcome back to YT Finance, and this is the channel where I went to business school so you didn't need to, and today we are talking about how analysts are actually becoming more positive and bullish on the PLTR stock because they say that Palantir stock could be worth around $20 right now, so this is a very good new price target from a new analyst who has just initiated coverage on the PLTR stock. Then we're going to talk about everything you need to know about Palantir Technologies investors, and what we mean by this is we are going to look at their total investors and shareholders to determine how many insiders own this company, how many institutions own Palantir Technologies, how many retail investors own this company, and from these metrics we can actually determine the proper composition of Palantir Technologies to dictate whether or not their shareholders are overall bullish or bearish on this particular company. Then lastly, we're going to talk about insider selling and how many insiders own specific amounts of shares, which we will go more in depth into when we talk about the shareholder composition. So for more videos like this one, remember to go and smash that like button right now. Comment your thoughts down below about Palantir Technologies and your personal price target for the next 12 months. Subscribe if you are new, and without further ado, let's jump right into today's stories. So as you all know, Russia has invaded Ukraine, and this has made a plethora of various countries, including the United States and their allies, focus more on their military. And this is why analyst Brian White thinks Palantir Technologies is very well positioned to take advantage of this shift of fear that has gone into the United States and their allies to even beef up their military even more. And of course, Palantir is going to help with this very drastically, because Palantir is a big data and analytics company that serves both commercial clients as well as government agencies. And this 5-star analyst says this, and I quote, he says, "We believe that the recent chaos initially ushered in by the pandemic and now the situation in Ukraine shines a light on the critical nature of the proprietary work consummated by Palantir over the years. Increasingly, we expect more organizations will recognize the value of Palantir's software," so this is very bullish news overall, and it's been said before that Palantir Technologies actually shines the most and they do the best during times of uncertainty and even war in some cases. The company, if you didn't know, was originally founded with the intention of developing software to support the United States government, specifically their intelligence community, to counteract terrorism. However, while the company has had immense success over in their government segment with their government-focused platforms, they have also experienced fantastic growth in their commercial segment, which is what I personally am the most bullish about and positive about for the company overall, and I think that their commercial segment will eventually take the company profitable sometime within 2024 to 2025. To put this into perspective, in Q4 of 2021, 55% of their revenues came from their government customers, while 45% of their revenues came from their commercial segment. So literally their commercial segment will eventually eclipse and pass the amount of revenues that they are bringing in from their government segments, and I actually have predicted this over a year ago that this will happen, and soon I believe we will reach that inflection point. Also, I really want to note that the company is bringing in around $1.5 billion worth of revenue each year. However, the company's TAM, or TAM, which is their total addressable market or total addressable market opportunity, is around $119 billion, so overall this is very positive news for Palantir Technologies. I also want to add that Palantir Technologies has a very unique software and platforms, which gives them a very special appeal to various government and commercial agencies, which means that it's very difficult to identify their exact competitors. Although Palantir does have competition, they have more indirect competition rather than direct competition, which means Palantir has a great competitive advantage in this $119 billion market. The 5-star analyst proceeds to say that when he initiated coverage on Palantir's PLTR stock, he says that the company is a great buying opportunity right now, and he has a price target for the company of $20 per share over the next 12 months, which means that the stock price could soar around 57% if this analyst is correct. However, compared to other analysts, we see that 3 analysts say that this company is a good buying opportunity. 4 of these analysts say that it's not a great buying opportunity and they think that investors should just hold this company right now, and then 2 analysts actually say to sell the stock in the next 12 months. However, the current stock price only trades for around $12.67 right now, which still gives investors fantastic upside opportunity if this stock is going to reach $12, because even the average price consensus for the company clocks in at around $14.44 if we average out all of the analyst price targets for the company. Also, I want to say that the very few analysts that are covering the stock from Wall Street and a plethora of other institutions are very well-known analysts. For instance, we have Morgan Stanley analysts covering the stock and a plethora of other very well-known analysts that are 5-star analysts. So these analysts are extremely accurate in their price predictions. And from these 5-star analysts, we have price predictions much higher than their average stock price, coming in at $16, $15, and $20 respectively. So this is very bullish news for the current stock price, because even though it trades at around $12.67, that would represent around a 13 or 14% upside opportunity if we decide to invest into the company right now. However, the low end price target for the company is $9 over the next 12 months. The average price target, like we talked about earlier, is $14.44, while the high end price prediction is $21 according to Wall Street. And to me, overall, this is very bullish and positive, especially as more analysts either change their initial coverage to a buying opportunity or increase their overall price target, which is very, very good. Now, moving on from this, we want to talk about the investor composition of Palantir Technologies. Normally, very large companies such as Palantir Technologies have very good institutional backing and institutional shareholders, and that's what we want to focus on for Palantir Technologies. We want to see very good and a large amount of institutional investors and shareholders, which means that multiple institutions are very bullish on this company and that they anticipate that the PLTR stock price will increase in price over the long term. We would also really want to see some degree of insider ownership as well, because this means that the insiders that run this company are shareholders themselves, and they also want to see the PLTR stock price do very well over the long term. And currently, with Palantir Technologies coming in with a market cap of around $26 billion, there is bound to be very big institutional backing if our original thesis of large companies have a large institutional backing is correct. Well, we can see, starting from the lowest share to the most broad share, we see that the state government owns around 0.03% of this company, while public companies own around 4%, individual insiders own around 10.5%, institutions own 33.9%, which is fantastic, and the general public, which would include you and me and retail investors, own around 51.6% of this company. Now, I want to highlight a few things here. Over 10% ownership is a very good staple for this company, and we're going to talk more about that in our next story. Institutional ownership over 30% is also a very bullish sign, and we can also see that retail investors just like you and me are very bullish on this company because we own over 50% of this company. So just from a first look, this is very good news considering Palantir Technologies. They have many institutional investors into this company, and normally institutions pay attention to bigger companies that are included in major indices. However, even if that's not the case, institutional investors are always a good sign to see in a company. Also, I want to point out that institutionals have a fair amount of value put into Palantir Technologies, which also can be a bad thing, but overall I think it's a good thing. And the reason why it can be a bad thing is a thing called crowded trade. And this means when multiple institutions own a company and the company doesn't perform very well, all of the institutions sell the company at the same time, and this absolutely demolishes the stock price, at least for the short term. So this can also work against Palantir Technologies. However, overall, I would say this is a very bullish and positive sign, and this is very good news for all investors involved. I also want to show a chart that I've showed multiple times on this channel, and it outlines their future projections for revenue, earnings, free cash flow, and cash from operations. We can also see that Palantir Technologies, for their earnings specifically on a GAAP basis, they're supposed to become at least positive and profitable between 2024 or in the year of 2025, and that's where we see this green line. And the really good news about this is that we see a positive uptrend in their earnings, so overall in the long term this is a fantastic sign. We see the same positive trajectory for their revenues as well as their free cash flows, and of course, if you all know me, you know I use free cash flows to calculate my price targets for various companies. Now, although this is very good news, I do want to say that hedge funds do not have a meaningful large investment in Palantir Technologies. However, with that being said, we can see that insiders do own a very large portion of Palantir Technologies, with the most notable shareholder being Peter Thiel, which is an absolutely phenomenal investor. He owns around 6.8% of the company individually, so he clearly is very bullish on the long-term aspects of this particular company, and this should give retail investors ample confidence in their investment in Palantir Technologies if they are going and willing to hold this company for the long term. Now, with that being said, I also want to highlight that Vanguard Group and BlackRock, which are fantastic investment firms, own around 6.3% and 4.2% 10% of Palantir Technologies respectively, and this is extremely bullish, with the CEO owning around 2.6% of the overall company, and we're going to talk more about their insider ownership later in this video. I also want to say that the article states, and I quote, that our studies suggest that the top 25 shareholders collectively control less than half of the company's shares, meaning that the company's shares are widely disseminated and there is no dominant shareholder, which means there's not just one institution or a couple institutions or insiders calling the shots for the overall company. This means that the company is very diversified and they have a healthy diversification among their shareholders, which is overall very good. So for the past two stories, such as their new price target of around $20 per share from a 5-star analyst, and we can see that their overall shareholders are diversified, which is very good, I want to solely take a look at and dive deeper into their insider holdings. Like for instance, we see insiders such as Alex Karp, specifically for Class A shares, own around 6.4 million shares, followed by the other executives in this particular company. And it's always good to see high insider ownership of a company that you own, because this puts the insider on the same page as their investors, which means that they will do everything in their power to make sure that the stock price will increase over the long term. However, some bearish naysayer critics are saying that insiders are selling their shares, and technically they're not wrong. Palantir's executives have sold around $2.3 billion worth of Class A shares since their DPO in September of 2020. However, what I want to add is that insider selling has dramatically dropped off over the last couple of months, specifically in the year of 2022, which is very good news overall. And this has actually invigorated at least this author and even some analysts to reiterate their buy rating for Palantir Technologies even at its current price, because they believe that Palantir Technologies could receive a potential price correction, thus causing the PLTR stock price to surge upwards. However, what data do we have to support this particular claim? Well, since the company's DPO, we can see insider sales from this pie chart right here, with some investors literally selling no shares at all, and other investors such as Peter Thiel and Alex Karp selling a load of shares. Now, I want to say that Peter Thiel is excused from this because he still owns a massive portion of this company. And since this is how many of these executives get paid, it is a no-brainer to see that of course these executives are going to be selling the company so they can acquire capital. So overall, this is actually very bullish news, and if we actually look at the year, we can see in 2022 that the insider selling has been extremely low, especially compared to the plethora of insider selling throughout 2020 and of course 2021. And this is fantastic news that for 2022, the insiders are literally holding on to their shares, which means that they believe that the stock price or the PLTR stock price targets are going to increase along with the PLTR stock price in general, which is very, very good news, and this should really give confidence to investors who are currently invested into the PLTR stock, especially if they have a long-term investment into this company such as I do. Now, lastly, I want to point out how Palantir Technologies compares to other companies when we compare their price to sales or PS multiple to their revenue growth. And overall, Palantir, which is highlighted in pink right now, is the best overall buy right now. We can see that their PS ratio is around 16.7, however their revenue growth 1 year percentage is around 34.4%, and this absolutely blows out of the water all of the other companies on this particular list, which you can see their ticker symbols down here. And many of these companies are actually very good. However, compared to all of these other companies, Palantir Technologies is trading at the largest discount, at least according to their price to sales multiple, which is very good news. So compared to all of these other companies, Palantir Technologies is a fantastic buying opportunity in my opinion, and even if we compare them to other similar companies trading on the public stock market right now. This signifies one of two things. It either means that Palantir Technologies is trading way below what they should be trading at, or it means that these other companies are trading at price to sales ratios that are extremely high and do not match up with their overall revenue growth. Specifically, ticker symbol APCX and ticker symbol BKKT, these absolutely do not align at all, even in the slightest. So clearly these companies would be some of the worst buying opportunities opportunities out of the companies on this list, but some of the best buying opportunities on this list would of course be Palantir Technologies coming in literally in first place, followed by MDB, and maybe NET or VRAR would be next. But I would love to hear your thoughts down below, how you think Palantir Technologies compares to other companies on the open stock market, particularly these companies highlighted in this particular article and graph. Smash that like button right now for more Palantir Technologies videos just like this one. Subscribe if you are new, and I will see you in the next YT video.